Alrighty, here we go. Back again. I told you guys I'd make this video yesterday. I'm back. I'm a woman of my word if I'm nothing else. And today the video is titled Why Bitcoin Dominates. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 5 reasons why I advocate so heavily for Bitcoin. And maybe these are reasons that you will end up advocating for Bitcoin in the future. So let's just get right into it. I don't even want to digress and take any time. First thing is the safety and the sovereignty of owning Bitcoin, right? So never before in human history has there been a money that's completely yours. You know, it's not the banks, it's not the governments, it's no one else's. People could argue and they could say, well, gold was technically ours. But I mean, we saw that the US government, all they had to do was just sign into law and say, hey, if you're caught with this, you're done. You say, well, they could do that with Bitcoin too. Sure, they could, but they'd have to prove that it's yours, right? And then on top of proving that it's yours, I mean, there's no physical evidence. Sure, you can have a wallet, but you could say, yeah, I don't know how to get into this thing. Here, take the wallet. You know your 12 words. You have no problem. You are sovereign, right? And you can carry it across the border. There's never been anything quite like it. With gold as well, you could only carry how much gold do you realistically think you could carry across the border? Let's just say from Texas to Mexico, right? Without getting flagged and having some, Mexican cops take it from you. American cops say, what are you doing here? And write you up to Uncle Sam. And all of a sudden now you got some 3-letter agency pounding on your door at 3 a.m., right? So there's just never been anything remotely like Bitcoin in that way. It's uniquely your own and you're sovereign. Bitcoin fixes all the problems that would have existed from the fiat standard and from gold. And I mean, you say, well, there was a time whenever people could barter. Bartering only works if both parties have exactly what the other party needs. What happens whenever the other person on the equation, you're good at fishing, they don't like fish or want fish or they're allergic or they don't need it. Right now you have to go on some mythical quest to be able to exchange. It's too much. So Bitcoin is unique in that way where you don't have all of the headaches and the worries and the middlemen that you're having to deal with. It is just belonging to you. There's no permission slip. There's no bank. There's no confiscation. It is you and your bread. And what could be better than that, right? Number 2, and this one is going to get me flack, but I don't care because I'm right and I'm good looking. So the reason that I say this one is because Bitcoin is unique once again. So point number 2 is environmentally sound. And you're saying Bitcoin is environmentally sound? Yes, it is compared to fiat. People love to talk about how much energy consumption Bitcoin takes up, and they say, oh, well, that's wasted energy. It's wasting all this energy. And I always want to counter to them and say, why don't you apply the same stringent rules to fiat that you do to Bitcoin, right? We don't talk about all the energy consumption and commodity consumption. And I mean, gosh, there's consumption across the board with fiat, whereas only energy is being consumed with Bitcoin. So what do I mean by this? Well, you have a bank, right? That's going to take up some municipal space. That's land that it's, being built upon. Those chemicals, right? There's bathrooms in banks. There's plumbing in banks. There's electric. They're using electricity in banks as well. I don't know if that comes as a surprise to anybody, but you're not walking into a mythical cave that's lit by candlelight, right? Also, money has to be transported to and from banks every single day. You see those Brinks trucks out there early in the morning getting it in. Guess what? They got rubber tires. They're using combustion engines. Oh, some of them are using electric engines. Well, guess what? That's energy consumption as well. Let's talk about even just the paper, right? That's trees, deforestation. That's an environmental impact, right? The roads have to be built. And not only are the roads being utilized by these banks, right? By the trucks going to and from the banks, the people that are commuting to and from the banks, the people that work at the banks commuting to and from every day for work. But all of that is impacted. When you pay taxes, you're having to help fund, right? You're having to help repave roads. You're having to help maintain the infrastructure of public areas. that damage wouldn't be so severe had we not had to deal with physical brick and mortar banks, right? And mind you, we're just talking about the US. This is happening around the entire world with all these different forms of fiat that they've got, right? You've got the dollar, the yen, the yuan, the pound. So on a grand scale, if you take all of the energy consumption, all of the commodity consumption, all of everything from all of fiat, and you compare it to the miners that are running, it doesn't equal up, right? It does not. It's not a waste of energy, and in fact it's a more efficient use of energy. Because think about it, right? The people that are mining Bitcoin and they're using energy, if there's a way to be able to do that cheaper and more efficiently, why wouldn't they choose that? If they said, well, right now, yeah, I'm plugging this into a wall, I'm generating all of this energy, but then they said, oh, I could actually, build a dam, or I could take hydroelectric power from over here and be able to run it all the way over this way, and I can capture some of that natural running water without having to build any other kinds of, environmentally harmful infrastructure. I can just let the water flow over whatever. I'm not familiar with hydroelectric power, so I'm not even going to pretend to use the jargon. But you understand what I'm saying? They're not, you're directly incentivized to find the least negatively impactful and most cost efficient way to mine energy, to get energy, I should say, to harvest energy to mine Bitcoin. Does that make sense? Are you following me? You're not going to spend $11,000 on your electric bill mining inside of your house when you could theoretically, right, access the stream that's in your backyard for free, and then you only have to pay let's say $50,000-$60,000 one time, and then you're able to mine for the rest of your life. It just makes more sense, and you're having less of a negative impact environmentally, and you're still being able to get what you want. You're providing that value to people, and making sure that the network is running efficiently. Everyone wins in this situation. So does Bitcoin use energy? Yes, it does. But it converts, wasted energy into stored value. So it's a wonderful thing. It finds those structures and it's monetizing them, if that makes sense, compared to fiat, which just kind of chops down trees, deforests, and then continues to print infinite amounts of money, both physical and digital, obviously, but still the impact that physical money has had is just, it's horrific. And we're wasting, even the metals that are used to make nickels and dimes and things. It's inefficient, right? There's a better use of those raw materials than to stamp a dead guy's face onto them and then have to have people dig between the cushions in their, couch to try to find a little something so they can go down to the gas station and buy a pack of gum. It's just, Bitcoin creates a leaner system, right? It's not as dirty. So I think that that's a fantastic reason to advocate for Bitcoin, and another reason why it's going to dominate in the long run. Number 3, also controversial, don't care, but it removes the incentives for war. Okay, so this is, for anybody who's studied history, I recommend every time. Do I have the book within arm's reach? I do not. But The Creature from Jekyll Island, I recommend it heavily because we never had any world wars. They brought up such a unique point. We never had any world wars before central banks became a thing, right? So the first central bank was the Bank of England, 1600s, right? But when the US had a central bank built, right, we all of a sudden started getting involved in world wars. And the reason why you can correlate these two things together is because war is expensive, right? And before central banks existed, the way that wars would traditionally work was you would have one kingdom here and another kingdom over there, and they would have beef, right? The two dudes at the top. The poor peasants didn't have any say in it most of the time. And even then, they were more subjected to it than wanting to participate in it, because they didn't have any dog in the fight, really, right? So what would happen is the kingdoms would have their coffers of money, and they would fund these wars because they have to pay for, the soldiers. They have to eat. They have to get weapons. They have to be transported. The soldiers got to be trained. Like, all of these things cost money. And so when central banks came on the scene, what would happen is they would print money and fund these wars. So the wars got longer. They got bloodier. They got, man-made horrors beyond, your comprehension. That was what was happening because they could afford to fund it. They just print money. And it was even more unfortunate because the people who didn't have a dog in a fight, right, or in the fight, the average Joes like you and I, we were losing our purchasing power because of the inflation that resulted from all of that money printing. So like I've discussed in previous videos, there's more money out in circulation. The cost of things goes up because there's more dollars that are fetching those goods, right? When your government is, printing off all of this money so that they can feed soldiers, the price of that food is going to start going up. And the people who are at home who are just trying to make it day to day are like, why is my bread going up by 10%? Like, why is that cost shooting up like that? Well, had we not had central banks just printing money infinitely, maybe people would have been better off, right? We'd be more well served. So what does this have to do with Bitcoin, right? Well, you can't print Bitcoin. The full amount that's ever going to exist currently exists, and we're mining our way through it until we get to that end number. And when that happens, there's no more. That's why I'm always saying, like, go pick yourself up some. Do not listen to these people who are telling you, oh, it doesn't matter. Oh, it doesn't matter if it goes up. Like, yeah, rah, rah, rah. I don't even want to parrot their points because it's just asinine. When money can't be printed, right? When new Bitcoin can't be printed, war can't be endlessly funded. Do you see what I'm saying? So every modern war that's been paid for with basically stealing from citizens through inflation, that can't happen anymore. Central banks printed all this money and devalue people's savings all throughout history, and now we have a form of money that can't happen. They can't just call it, oh, it's defense spending, and all of a sudden you're wondering why the prices of things are going up. That doesn't happen. On a Bitcoin standard, that game completely is eradicated. It stops. If a nation wants to go to war on a Bitcoin standard, it has to actually generate the value to pay for it. And that means there's no endless printing. That means there's no invisible taxation. There's no invisible theft. And suddenly, all of these, bloodthirsty, I should say, leaders, they start to look at peace as becoming the cheaper option, and they start advocating for peace because it means that their nation can remain prosperous. If you use up all of your money and your nation is no longer wealthy, everybody suffers. You probably get, depending on what kind of nation you are, what kind of people you got, you get the schmirking treatment, or you are evicted, right? And they chase you out and you got to fly off in your helicopter with your wife and your German Shepherd and all the diamonds you could fit in a bag to the nearest safe haven country, and you're never seen or heard from again, right? So in this example, a Bitcoin standard, it allows people to think rationally and not just escalate for no reason other than, oh, well, we can afford it, so why don't we do it, right? Now all of a sudden, war becomes viewed through the lens that it always should have been. It's just like a last resort, not just a line item on a budget that hasn't been balanced in decades. You know what I'm saying? It's now we're no longer just saying, yeah, let's just go ahead and sacrifice all of our young men and like women. Women fight too these days. Let's look for something else. Let's find a way to come to solutions that are peaceful. So I honestly think out of all of these, that one is probably the biggest one because I'm the first generation in my family over the last at least 3 that did not fight in any form of war. I can't go back any further that I know of. If somebody happens to know how to do that without giving up my DNA, I'd love to find out. But my parents were military, grandparents military, everybody was in the military and I'm not. So I think about had it been wartime, had they been, boots on the ground, well, some of my family members were, my uncle was, Like, that could have been the end of our bloodline. And how sad to think that that could have just been a line item on a budget, and somebody could have said, oh, that's sad, and folded up a flag, and then, handed that to my grandpa. That is a horrific thought. And yeah, that's a terrible thought. And there's people who are living right now whose family members have died, whose bloodlines ended because of the carelessness of, leadership, but also being on a fiat standard that incentivizes the nuclear option, for lack of a better term. Not literally nuclear, but you know what I'm saying. Number 4, and this is the one that gets me giddy and gets everybody, hype when they talk about Bitcoin, and it's that it levels the playing field, right? So on an inflationary dollar standard, those who own assets win, right? And those who work for them lose. So that's why I always say it's not, what you make, it's what you own, because the people who own assets, that money is chasing assets at all times. And obviously, right, there's a cycle to things, and there's, assets will decline in value, but then they'll come up in value, and they'll decline in value, but maybe that decline is a little bit higher than the previous decline, and on and on and on. And then, of course, it'll wipe some people out. There'll be a couple of decades where things can get bad, but it'll build back up again. This is just the cycle of things, the inherent nature of things. But think about, like, 2008 is the best example that I can give. Banks literally decided to just gamble the economy into oblivion, right? They just put it all on black. They're like, oh yeah, it's a party, it's a casino. And then inevitably, when the gambling collapsed under the weight of its own bullshit, right, they got bailed out. That was Obama, y'all. Like, that was Obama. Bailed out with printed money, and it came out of the savings of the poor people who didn't own assets, right? Regular people were losing their houses. They were losing their jobs. They were losing their savings. They were being taxed invisibly. When I say it's coming out of their savings, I should have used a different term. Like, it's the invisible tax, the money printing tax, the inflation that hits. It's stealing wealth from people without directly doing it, right? It's the politically favorable option. So all of the losses were, this is how I always like to say, the gains are always socialized at the top, and the losses are socialized to the bottom, right? And that bill is, handed to all of the people on the bottom through inflation. That's the best way to put it. But Bitcoin, though, on a Bitcoin standard, that flips the script, y'all. So when your currency gains in value, patience is rewarded. Like, for the first time ever, discipline and virtuous living is rewarded. And it's a fantastic thing. Savers aren't punished. You don't have to go out and hustle, grind set, baby. We're going to go out there and we're going to, you don't have to do all that. You can just put your money into your savings in Bitcoin and let it rock out. It's working for you. The moment that you purchase and it's in your hands, you are a part of the ownership class. It's an incredible thing, right? So the economy stops worshiping this cheap, mass-produced garbage and starts rewarding quality, durability, truth, and value, right? And that is the most, arguably, besides the point that I just made before this, that is just the richest part of Bitcoin, right? That is the penultimate richest part. Like, I guess if I were to make an analogy, right? Imagine you've been working and working and working all your life leading up to when you are finally let loose out into the workforce. But we're going to make this analogy as a race. So you've been training and training and training for this race, this, marathon that you're going to take. And your first day at work, you're at the starting line of this race, right? You're lined up. You're feeling good. And the gun goes off and you take off running. And you're like, okay, cool. What is a marathon? Is it like 32 miles or something like that? So you're like, okay, 32 miles. You're running. And then you hear from the crowd, somebody says, oh, they're moving the finish line. The finish line is going further out. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute, what? I trained for 32 miles. I wasn't, what do you mean it's moving? And they say, yeah, now the new line is 40 miles. You're saying, oh my God, 40 miles? I've never run 40 miles. That's insane. But you're like, okay, whatever, I'm gonna keep going. And you hit mile 30, you're like, I'm 10 miles away. And then you hear somebody else yell out again, hey, the finish line is now 60 miles. And you're like, bruh, I'm literally dying. I don't even run 60 miles when I'm training over the course of a full week. What do you mean? What are you talking about? This is exactly what was happening and what is happening to people right now. They started off and they were told, okay, you're going to be like 23 years old, 22 years old. You're going to enter the workforce. You're going to work for 40 years. You're going to retire like at 60. They're going to give you a gold watch. You're going to have a pension and you're going to be able to peace out and everything's going to be good. But what happened instead was that we started printing off in the trillions. And now all of a sudden you're looking up and you're like, in order for me to have enough money to be able to survive, even 40 years from now when the currency's worth even less, I would have to work the equivalent of 80 years. I'm literally going to collapse. I'm going to keel over one day at work and that's going to be the end. And they're going to put a little tarp over me and tell people to step over my body and keep working, right? So the finish line keeps being moved, pivoted further and further and further and further away because the dollar is being reduced down to literally nothing, right? They're telling you, oh, well, it's just you and your effort and, you can do it. But in reality, it's not just you and your effort and, the fair ground under your feet like it would be on a Bitcoin standard. It is like you're having to not only work your job, but you're also going to have to figure out how you're going to make money as a side hustle. And then on top of that, you're going to have to figure out how to do multiple side hustles at the same time because one is not going to cut it. And you need to be able to have more and more and more streams of income. And before you know it, your entire life is spent chasing money when the point of life is so much deeper. And there's so many more important things than money to chase, if that makes sense. So, it forces those who are in charge of running the race, right, to be honest and to leave the finish line where it is at for everyone. There is no more pivoting out the finish line. Like I said earlier, it's you, it's your effort, and it's the fair ground under your feet. Everybody's running the same race. Sure, some people are better off than others. That's literally life. But you know that you got a fair shot, and that's the biggest thing. So when it comes to Bitcoin, you know what I'm saying? You aren't forced to accept that dishonest competition, right? It removes that illusion from in front of your eyes. And I think that's extremely hopeful for the future, which brings me to my fifth point that I hope wraps this up succinctly. And it's that Bitcoin is hope for the future. You know what I'm saying? Like, Bitcoin is more than just a financial asset. It's a lifeline for people who feel as though they're just fighting against the current, right? And it's dragging them backwards and they're like, I'm running out of energy. This is a rope being thrown out to you to say, hey, grab onto this and start stacking and pulling yourself up out of the water, and we're going to be able to make it. We're going to be able to make it, but you just got to start. You got to start pulling yourself a little bit, right? I hate to use the whole pull yourself by your bootstraps thing, but it genuinely gives people the opportunity to save themselves if they so please, right? In collapsing economies, it's difficult to find a way out, and the government isn't going to help you. They're going to, keep destroying the money because that's what's politically popular. That's what's going to get Team Red or Team Blue reelected for the next 4-year cycle, right? So young people, especially, right? Because I'm 28, so people my age, people a little bit younger, especially, we don't have to try to save in a system that's quite literally rigged against that exact behavior. We can save in a system that is built to draw up, right? It's Michael Saylor calls Bitcoin a liquidity sponge. It draws up all that liquidity, and in turn it grows and becomes more valuable because people realize, oh, I want this. You get to save in a liquidity sponge. You get to save in something that's going to be worth more in the future than it is at present. And you get the opportunity to keep stacking at present. So the more and more that you stack, the better off you are in the future. And like I said earlier, it rewards patience, it rewards discipline, it rewards virtuous behavior. It's a fantastic positive feedback loop. The more that you're saving, the more virtuous that you are, and being patient, the better off that you are in the long run. So it gives, humanity, I guess the way I put it is it's a silent and non-violent protest. And, I've had my fair share of times where I'm like, sometimes you just have to be violent, but there are times when you can outthink a problem and not have to be violent, right? And kind of like I said, in one of my earlier points, I think it was point 3 with, war. This is a way to wage war, a way to fight against the system that does not require a risk to you and your family's physical well-being, a risk to you and your loved ones, right? It could be your friends or whoever, your neighbors' well-being. This is you saying, I'm opting out and there's nobody that can stop me, and I'm going to continue to keep doing this, and we're going to be okay. I'm going to be able to afford the things that I need. My life is going to be fantastic because I've set myself up for success through using a hard currency that can't just be inflated away, right? So, this is the first time in human history where the average person has access to the same kinds of investments, financial technology, you call it what you want to call it, that, sovereign wealth funds in other institutions, governments, right? Just individuals, wealthy individuals can all access, right? You don't have to become accredited. You don't have to worry about private placements and all these things. You could be a scanner at Sprouts grocery store, and you can have the same opportunity to purchase as Warren Buffett does, as Elon Musk does, as the Scandinavian Sovereign Wealth Fund does, as the Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund does. It's an incredible thing. You get to participate. This is unheard of. This is unheard of. There are bankers that existed back in the 1600s who are probably rolling around in their graves thinking about the idea that a peasant can buy the same thing as the wealthy clients could, right? It's incredible. And that's what makes it, carnivorous. That's what makes it dangerous, because Bitcoin can't just be bribed and bullied and bombed and, confiscated. It is 10 toes down all the time, and you can have a piece of that. It's everywhere and it's nowhere. It's owned by everyone, but also controlled by no one. It is the penultimate kind of investment, and that's what makes it so special. And you have the opportunity right now to be a part of it. It's digital money, but it's also the last honest system that we got. If this doesn't work, I don't know. I don't have any other ideas or solutions. I guess you just go park it on some land, dig yourself a bunker, and wait it out. You know what I'm saying? But that is the core essence of the 5 really big reasons why I believe that Bitcoin is game changing. And if you guys have other reasons that I didn't touch upon, please, drop a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. But I really want you guys to understand what an amazing opportunity lies directly in front of us. This is so amazing. And I know that there's people who are in it just for, number go up. Understand this. The price is going to fluctuate. It's going to go up. It's going to go down. It's going to go up. It's going to go down. But the trend, the overall trend, the grand scheme of things, it's just basic mathematics. You don't have to like it. You have to acknowledge that math is correct. In time, you will find the same way that you thought $100,000 Bitcoin was ridiculous during the pandemic, because that's how I felt. We're going to look in the future and we're going to say, oh my God, let's not even go to the future right now, right? When Bitcoin came down and it almost touched 100K, people were laughing and saying, look at it crash. What? We went from like 125 down to 100, just about 103 or so. And people are talking about it's crashing. There's going to be a time when $1 million Bitcoin hits and it's going to fall 100K, and we're going to say, oh, well, this is a great dip, a great buying opportunity. Meanwhile, 100K is the entire value of a full coin right now. Like, it's just, Rajat does a great job. Rajat Soni, he says that every price is going to become a rounding error, right? The same way that $1,000 was the value of an entire coin at one point. Now Bitcoin falls $1,000. You can do that in 30 seconds, and people, are like, oh, what's happening here, right? And then it finds support and it bounces up 2,000, then it drops down 3,000, right? So all that to say, y'all, this is an amazing opportunity. It's an amazing place to park your money, and maybe this video doesn't convince you, and that's okay. You'll figure it out, and when you do, you'll get in at the price that works for you. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to hold you guys here for too long. I just wanted to get that off my chest, say a little something to y'all. And I hope you guys are having a fantastic Friday. I will be back with another video for you guys on Monday, and we're going to keep this thing rolling, right? So if you like this video, double tap, thumbs up, whatever it's called, drop a comment. Let me know what you think. I want to have a conversation with y'all. This is not just me yapping up here. So I hope you'll have a fantastic weekend. We'll be back next week, like I said. And until then, peace.